Hello and welcome to the big picture. The elections to the parliament in Sri Lanka has followed the pattern which we saw in the January presidential elections. Even as the final results are awaited, it is now more or less clear that former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's dream of making a comeback as the Prime Minister has been dashed. His rival and present Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe's United National Party seems to be inching towards the halfway mark of 113 seats, though it is expected to fall short by a few seats. This result is being seen as the victory for the moderate forces as against the hardline Sinhalese line adopted by Rajapaksa. We will discuss today the implications of these results for Sri Lanka, for the region and also for India. To discuss this, I have with me Nirupam Sen, former Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, D.Raja, CPI MP in the Rajya Sabha, P. Sahadevan of the Center for South Asian Studies at the JNU, and Siddharth Varadarajan, founding editor at the Wire.in. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Sen, this was a complicated election.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are some changes as compared to the previous election. Because it was complicated by two things, I think. One is that the UNP would have got a majority had they done certain things. They were not seen as strong enough on economic policy, on various other matters.
Right.
And that is one. So there was a sense of hope, but at the same time disappointment. This is true also of what they did for the minorities. They did something, land, demilitarization up to a point. But there was again hope, which is very important in an election, but some kind of disappointment also. On the other hand, I think the Indian Tamils for the first time, have played, well, not for the first time, but compared to the previous two elections, they have played a very important role. Because while it was
They played an important role this time.
This time, very important. Because
more important than they have played ever in the past.
More important than perhaps most of the times in
most
the
of the times.
Because, you see, in Badulla, to give you one example, in the plantation areas, I mean, in the presidential election, or in the previous parliamentary election, the Rajapaksa had lost by barely 300 votes or so. This time, the figure is into several thousands. So I think there is a change there. There's not much change in the case of Colombo or the South. South is blue, Colombo is green, which are the colors of the SLFP, UNP.
Mr. Sen, another complicated, how this election got complicated was, here is a president whose candidate was Mahinda Rajapaksa, whom he was not very keen to be, to win or become the Prime Minister. He was in fact supporting the rival of Rajapaksa. This was the complication. This was another serious complication.
You are very true. And in fact, you see, this also had his vacillations. The president's vacillations also had a slightly negative effect. And otherwise, they could have, got a majority, as I said. Because the president on the 13th, he said that he will nominate for Prime Minister Anura Priyadarshini Yapa and Prem Jayanta. And then on the 14th, he expels them from the Central Committee and virtually from the party within a day. So what changes in 24 hours? So I think this vacillation between fright and courage, kind of hot courage to take warm action. So this also, I think, was not very good and also added to the complication of the election.
Okay. Mr. Raja, how do you see the results? No, do you agree with Mr. Sen that Indian Tamils have played a very important role this time?
For that matter, I think all Tamils in Sri Lanka have played an important role. The results need to be properly analyzed. Lessons need to be properly drawn. Having said that, initial response, I think the results have gone against Mr. Rajapaksa. Mr. Rajapaksa himself has considered his defeat,
right.
Number one. Number two, it gives a message to Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe also. He has to deliver on the promises. That one, he has to take note. Because the whole election results, I think, it is for a political settlement, a political solution to the problems that island nation has been confronting for decades together. And as Mr. Sen pointed out, still the demilitarization of Tamil areas is an issue. and the Tamil people getting their own land is an issue, and thousands of people still declared to be disappeared. Where are they? What are they? How are they? Nobody knows. And still, there are reports people are under custody. There are any
multiple
number
problems
of
there.
problems, and unless the new government acts on these issues, the new government will really betray the will of the people, because people want certain political solution. Even the question of war crimes or the question of gross violation of human rights in Sri Lanka is an issue. One cannot simply
Absolutely.
forget. And
and also the question of devolution of power.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Professor Sahadevan, is this the victory of the moderate forces? Is Sri Lanka now moving away from the hard line, which has been witnessed for a long time, for quite some time now during the period of at least Rajapaksa?
Yeah, I think the victory in a way should be also seen in the context of the January presidential election, and it's a continuation.
It's a continuation.
In a way. I think the Sri Lankan electorate's really shown maturity, and they made a very sort of a very credible judgment on who should be really given the charge to really run the government in a way. I think Rajapaksa exposed himself thoroughly in the last 10 years of his rule. I think that people don't really want to really forgive him for whatever really done in a way.
And it is not just Tamils.
It's not just Tamils in a way. It's really, similarly is true in a way.
Yes.
But having said that, I think there is a huge constituency which still really sort of adorn him.
And he's going to be he may become the opposition leader, and it's a pretty strong opposition there.
He's going to be a position if at all, Maithripala Sirisena really make him as a the president of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. But the point is, as an opposition, he can really make noises in a way. But I think that you have president who will moderate him in a way, as he done in the case of the electioneering. So I think it's not going to be a usual Rajapaksa that you're seeing him from 2005 to 2014. So I think the other thing is also, I think it's you have a kind of a mobilization that have taken place against corruption, misgovernance, and so on and so forth. All put together, I think that you had a victory that is in a way for a moderate forces in a way. I think it's a liberal constituency in Sri Lanka.
It's a liberal and liberal constituency, moderate forces. Siddharth Varadarajan. Siddharth, would you also like to see this as a victory of the moderates? I mean, and the challenges which the new government will face, and also more importantly, has this strengthened the hands of Sirisena?
You see, it's a vote for change, much like the presidential election was a vote for change. But what makes the parliamentary result, to my mind, all the more remarkable is that this is a vote for change expressed through a very complicated prism, where you have the Prime Minister of the government that has been in power since January, essentially coming from a different party than the President Sirisena and Ranil are different parties, fighting against each other. And yet, so, it's not clear for the average voter who essentially does not want to go back to the Mahinda era to decide how to vote. Do I vote for the SLFP and of the titular head of which is the president? Do I vote for UNP? And so through this very complicated equation where the relationship between President Sirisena and Ranil essentially has been coming under enormous strain, I think the electorate has acted with maturity and wisdom. If indeed Ranil finally gets a majority or close to a majority, this would very much be in keeping with the cohabitation result that the electorate delivered for the presidential election, where Sirisena is somebody who defected from the Mahinda camp and came together with the opposition in order to essentially, make a break with the past, make a break with the authoritarianism, corruption, chauvinism of the Rajapaksa regime, and come up with a new Sri Lanka based on implementing promises that the people, that they made to all people, including the Tamils. So I think the decks are now cleared for realizing the hopes and aspirations that were very much a part of the January 8th revolution, so to speak. And now both Sirisena and Ranil will have to put in place a stable arrangement, obviously with the backing of the TNA, perhaps the JVP, in order to deliver on those promises, including some of the issues that Mr. Raja raised of the disappearances, torture, human rights issues, and the long-awaited political settlement of the Tamil question.
Right. Mr. Sen? Mr. Sen, the issue is now, what are the first challenge before this new arrangement? And do you think the new arrangement has to be that Sirisena will cohabit with Ranil Wickremesinghe as he has done for the last 6-7 months? And now the more important thing, that the amendment which was brought in, the presidential powers gets reduced, prime ministerial powers gets enhanced. These are all very interesting issues.
Yes, these challenges still remain, because the first, as you very correctly said, are the political challenges themselves. The issue of cohabitation. But there again, see, paradoxically, it may be easier to cohabit with Ranil than it would have been to cohabit with Mahinda. Though the other two are from the same party.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is that, you see, there is some experience of cohabitation between Sirisena and Ranil. So they had differences, we all know that. But there is some experience. Secondly, the National Executive Committee, which was somewhat like the UPA 1 steering committee, has also, brought people together.
Right.
So there is an institutional form of this cohabitation. That's the first thing. The second challenge would be to get a majority, which I don't think would be difficult, because personally I don't think he's going to get a majority or even near a majority on his own. Because there are 100,
because he will fall short by 10 to 12
because
seats.
there are 198 seats only in terms of first past the post.
Yes.
And he may go up to about 105, 107 at the most. So he would have to make up the shortfall. Now there are three things. One is that the TNA is going to be with him. Secondly, the SLMC, so which is already about 16, 17 seats. Then something that many people sometimes overlook is that within this 84 or 87, even if he makes it to 87, Mahinda Rajapaksa, within this 87, there are about 15 to 20 MPs who are actually loyal to Sirisena rather than to
who may
Mahinda.
switch sides.
And who would switch sides. In fact, there was there's a satirical journal in Sri Lanka which said that post-elections, the frogs will not just jump but fly. So I think, that could give him a fairly stable majority.
Right.
Even without the JVP, because the JVP is not going to come in. They are going to support from outside, and there will be very sharp differences. Because for the JVP, Mahinda is enemy number 1,
right.
but Ranil is enemy number 2.
Right.
So the JVP is only going to tactically support Ranil from outside, but he won't really need them to that extent. They have about 7 odd seats they are expected to get.
Right. So, Mr. Raja, you expect this to be a stable government with this kind of arrangement and then frogs flying?
No, that is exactly the point. We'll have to wait for the final tally, how the numbers are going to play out. But there are complications in Sri Lankan polity. It is not that easy or that simple. One should try to understand. In the emerging situation as it is in Sri Lanka, the TNA is likely to play a very crucial role. Very crucial role. And the Tamil question needs to be addressed on priority basis. Because if you talk of cohabitation or coexistence of...
TNA would like to extract some price for that.
No, don't let us not use whether the TNA will extract this. TNA will have its legitimate right to demand certain things, and the Tamil people have the legitimate right to demand certain things, because Tamil people cannot be treated as second-rate or third-rate citizens or outsiders who have come there and settled there. They will have to live under the writ of somebody else. That is how Mr. Rajapaksa was trying to rule, and Rajapaksa's whole family became the ruling family, and as Siddharth was pointing out, corruption, misrule, authoritarianism, autocracy, they were all hallmarks of Rajapaksa government. Above all, the anti-Tamil chauvinism and genocide that by Mr. Rajapaksa all went against him. That's a different thing. Now in the emerging situation, how Sri Lanka can emerge as a modern democratic republic. They claim to be socialist democratic republic. Whether they are socialist or not, that's a different issue. At least they should emerge as a democratic republic and conceding the genuine demands of all sections of the society, all nationalities, all religious ethnic groups in Sri Lanka. That is where the problem lies. The Tamil people have been given very raw deal in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Professor Sahadevan, reforms, they're talking of, one of the major things which this new government will have to tackle is the reforms which were started in the last 6-7 months and to continue. What are these major reforms which you think they'll be able to undertake, and where are the hurdles there?
I think the most easily doable reform is the 20th Amendment, which is the electoral reform, basically bringing in changes in the present setup, which is the PR system, proportional representation system. What they're planning to do is to have PR plus first passport system merged together in some way. And that, I think, they can have easily they can arrive at a consensus on that. I think the next step is, I think, what Maithripala Sirisena himself promised in January 2015 election, in a way. I think it's abolition of the executive presidency, which is going to be a very difficult task now. The point is, I think...
Why do you say it's going to be a difficult task?
The point is, they proposed for it, but I think the Supreme Court ruled, I think, that if we are going to bring about a change, obviously need to go for a referendum. Now, referendum means, I think that's, it can go either way, in a way. I think it's so, the mood of the country is so in for, so much in favor of, reforming the whole executive presidency, which is considered to be a much of a system which promote soft authoritarianism, which
was witnessed during the
Rajapaksa's time, in a way. I think they might, it's not off the agenda. I think that they want to bring it back to the agenda again. I think the most difficult things are more to do with the political solution and the addressing the war crime allegations and so on. September is not too far away. I think the UN Human Rights Council is going to have a report. I think, in a way, as you know, I think the elections are really, in a way, preponed, much to really sort of respond to the September event. Things are going to really play out in the polity even then. I think the huge task for Ranil and Sirisena to really respond to that. What they have been thinking is to have an internal sort of a domestic inquiry supervised by the international community, which is not going to be acceptable to TNA. I think they have been really sort of resisting that.
That is where the balancing act will...
A whole lot of other things, demilitarization, so on and so forth. In a way, it's going to be an issue.
Siddharth, challenges?
There's no end to it, but I would say that if, in fact, I think one outcome which in many ways would be preferable is if the UNP does not get a majority of its own and, in fact, needs the support of the TNA, because I think that will help focus Ranil's mind as Prime Minister to the need to actually address the Tamil question in all its dimensions. And I think here it's also essential that the TNA should dial back, should move back a little bit from the kind of maximalist position that we've seen. I thought it was very unhelpful for the resolution to have been passed by the assembly in the north, the provincial assembly, on the so-called genocide resolution, essentially casting doubts on the current government or any future government of Sri Lanka to do justice. I think this is not helpful, quite frankly. It's essential that justice be brought about through a process of dialogue, reconciliation, and one in which the TNA and the UNP really have to work together. So I think that being forced to come together in a coalition government is one way in which Ranil will also recognize the need to be, shall we say, more accommodating of Tamil concerns, and the Tamil parties also have to essentially be pragmatic about this and to not essentially seek refuge behind maximalist posturing. It's possible that some of that posturing had to do with the TNA wanting to safeguard its turf from more radical elements, but now that it's won so decisively in this election, I think it's important that they be able to find a working relationship, because that really is the key to moving ahead on the Tamil question.
Okay, Mr. Singh, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I would agree broadly, but but everything that they want to do also has a serious limitation. behind it. And that, I think, is the principal challenge in each sector. Because, see, for instance, devolution of power,
Right.
or looking at war crimes, which Mr. Raja raised. Now, on that, the main thing is that the Sinhala peasantry, since the 30s, has been a very serious factor in the polity of Sri Lanka, which nobody can ignore. Now, the fact that Hambantota, Mathura, Gaul have almost voted en masse for Rajapaksa would be a very serious limitation on this. Similarly, Champika Ranavakke, the JHU, Jatika Hera Urumoy, which is a Buddhist monk-based party, they joined even before Ranil. They would also hold him back. JVP from behind would also hold him back. So there is a serious challenge there. Again, fighting corruption. Now, on fighting corruption, let us not forget that one of the things which again went against them in some areas in these elections, parliamentary elections, is that there was a massive scam, a massive corruption in the central bank bonds. That is, many UN peers made a lot of money through insider knowledge, insider training, and so on. So that again is a limitation. Then again, on the purely political reform, that is the polity, the 20th Amendment and so on. Now there again, the limitation is that with this cohabitation, with so many different forces, and the cohabitation between Ranil of the UNP and Sirisena of the SLFP, it is not just a question of referendum or political power or constitutional nicety. It's also a question of political power, political interest.
Right.
It would be in the interest of Sirisena not to transform the executive presidency too much. So, as I said, in every sector that you see, there is something holding them back.
Pull and push factor.
There's a pull and push
there.
factor,
Working
and
there.
that I think is the principal challenge in each sector.
Okay, Mr. Raja, let's look at it from the Indian point of view. How is this the best result that India could have expected?
As far as India is concerned, India should take note, because India should have played a proactive role in the past. If you ask me frankly, India did not play its role as expected. That is my point of view. Because now, at least India should take note. People are for a change. They are for certain political solutions. They reject the past rulers, particularly Rajapaksa, for all his failures and the assault on Tamil people. So India should take note that now immediately September United Nations Human Rights Council meeting is there. And Sri Lanka will have to show some credible record of what it has been doing, or it is going to do. And I do not know what the president and the new prime minister are going to do, because after all, there is pressure from international community. I do not mean only Tamil diaspora outside Sri Lanka, but I am talking about the international community as such. They are questioning Sri Lanka's record of human rights and everything. This is number one. Number two, even for political reforms, for economic reforms, Sri Lanka needs a kind of stability in its governance.
No, but as far as India is concerned.
No, India is concerned, India will have to engage whoever becomes the prime minister, and India will have to engage with Sri Lanka. But on what terms? In geopolitical, India should not succumb to certain pressures using the geopolitical equations. In the past, it happened, and Indian Ocean region,
China,
the factor of China, always showing China will come into play in Indian Ocean theater. India cannot allow that, or other forces can enter into Indian Ocean region.
So you're saying that we should not look at this from the prism of China?
India will have to take certain political, moral position, because India being the immediate neighbor, India knows everything what is going on in Sri Lanka, what went on in Sri Lanka. Without the knowledge of India, I do not think anything happened in Sri Lanka.
So we need to be more pragmatic, you think?
Yes, India should be more political and honest position. India as an immediate neighbor should take an honest political, moral position, and to say what is wrong, what is right.
Sahadevan?
I think it's a good result for India, given our experience with Rajapaksa.
Because, Rajapaksa had made a public claim that in January he was defeated by Indian forces also.
Yeah, I mean, and that story goes much deeper into all that.
Yeah.
But I think we have, this is what perhaps we can expect it of. I think it's, you can deal with the Sirisena and Ranil in a very credible way. I think it's more reasonable people in a way. I think it's a way. But that doesn't mean they're going to really sort of come close to you and then at the cost of their...
This feeling that, they will be more closer to India than Rajapaksa was to China, so we should celebrate this victory.
No, and this...
You think that is a...
No, they need to... They are interested in have a very balanced relationship in a way. I think it's... They don't want to be seen as bandwagoning with India. So that's fair enough in a way. I think it's, you can deal with them. I think you can really engage them in a very productive way. I think it's unlike Rajapaksa, who used to really backtrack on whatever he really promised. I think these people really sort of very reasonable in that sense. I think at the same time, let's also be very clear, we need to be also really sensitive to Sri Lanka's interest.
Absolutely.
I think, you can't really go overboard to really
Overboard
sort of...
Siddharth, from the Indian point of view.
Yeah, I think, India has, I think, played a constructive role in the last 6 months or so, notwithstanding the over-the-top allegations that Mahinda Rajapaksa made after the results. I think that, I'm sure that India encouraged the opposition to get its act together in the run-up to the elections, and the verdict which came in January was a relief not just to the people of Sri Lanka, but also to India, which was really quite worried about the direction the country was taking, Sri Lanka was taking, and under Rajapaksa. So now you have in place, I mean, the uncertainty that Sri Lanka's peculiar political arrangements had left in the wake of the January result and this, uncertain cohabitation. All of that is now, that phase is coming to an end. And I think India now is, in a position to engage with the new arrangements as they emerge in Sri Lanka. I think it's important, however, if I just build on something that Mr. Raja said, that, we should be careful not to be overly prescriptive in terms of the kind of choices that Sri Lanka wishes to make. If Sri Lanka sees merit in building closer economic relations with China, and India is not in a position to match offers that the Chinese are making, then it becomes very difficult for us to say, look, don't do that.
Exactly.
So I think that, having expressed our preferences, having said what we want, one should not push it to an extent where it begins to alienate people in Sri Lanka, because that's really not in any country's interest. So I think that, the logic of culture and geography is such that Sri Lanka and India will always have a very good relationship.
Okay. Mr. Sen, very quick last
And we need not worry too much about the China factor.
What should India do? How does India, balance the relationship now?
See,
quickly, sir, we are running out of time.
No, just very briefly, times have changed. But the thing is that this election has been on balance good for us, because whether it's on the Tamil issue or on China, it is better this government than Rajapaksa. That is one. The second thing is that the Rajiv Accord, which had two elements. One, the accord, which is devolution of power and the rights of the Tamils. And second, the exchange of letters, which is keeping out external influences. Now, I agree with Siddharth that we cannot keep out external economic influences. But when it comes to the military factor, I think we should be very clear with this present government, as we have been ever since the days of Rajiv Gandhi, that we cannot have Chinese military or espionage or surveillance presence.
Absolutely. Okay. I think on that note, we need to end. It has been a very fruitful discussion. We'll wait and watch how things will emerge in Sri Lanka. But as far as all the panelists are concerned, the results in Sri Lanka is in the best interests of India also, apparently. We'll have to wait and watch what happens. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.